the morn they rise, Fanad's warriors in disguise. Fields of green where dreams reside, proudly wear the red and black with pride. Whispers of the ancient tale echoes through the vale and dale. In the roaring crowd they find strength and spirit intertwine. Oh, Fanad United, bold and free, hearts of Donegal by the sea. Together we stand strong and true, in red and black we will renew. From the cliffs and rugged shores to the echoes of Gaelic lore, every match a story told, in hearts of fearless young and old. Legends born on soil so pure, battles fought with hearts secure. Rich the heritage they share, in every goal a promise there. Oh, Fanad United, bold and free, hearts of Donegal by the sea. Together we stand strong and true, in red and black we will renew.
In Fanad there always were quite a number of good footballers, and there was a group from Ballyherian who had a team, and there was a group from Trialoch who had a team, and their only competition would have been in sports days, and there were sports then in Cranford and Rathmullen and Kellavee and Trialoch, and that was how the two teams came about. But Father Michael saw the opportunity to amalgamate the whole thing, and that's how Fanad United came about. Himself and Father Dan Doherty got the players together, and that's how Fanad United were formed, and they continue to operate in summer cups and competitions like that.
But where did you play from the beginning? Where was
the matches? Most of the matches. I remember going to Ballyherian on a bicycle on a Sunday to play football. We would have a competition among ourselves, but then Trialoch became the kind of the focal point, and that was how it. But there was no facilities there. There was no dressing rooms. There was nothing. And Father Michael bought an old railway carriage. It was up in Portsalon where Rita Smith had the chalets there, and they were getting rid of it, and he probably got it for nothing, got it for taken down, and that was the changing rooms. So after a while, when things started to look up, and the public wanted a place to meet, and however they got around, Tom O'Donnell, who was Minister for the Gaels at the time, gave them a £15,000 grant, and they built the community centre on that. There was no planning permission, there was nothing. That was all got later, at a later date. They had to get the planning permission afterwards. But that's how the place came about. It was used then for all social and community work, but there was two rooms especially laid aside for dressing rooms, and that's where they had showers. They had maybe at that time more modern facilities than a lot of places.
Would the community centre been built voluntary, or was there a contract or anything?
Oh no, it was built by voluntary labour. Because I remember going to Letterkenny. There was in the middle of the building there was a cement strike, and I remember going to Letterkenny. The fella in Kelly's, Ramsey, I can't remember his first name. He rang me to say that there was cement coming in from Poland, and then if I came up I would get half a ton of cement. And I went up at it with a Renault 4 van and a trailer, and I took a half a ton of cement down, and my heart was in my mouth coming down the tank brain and the Melton. I was afraid I was going to go into the river.
Right, so then
But that was how the community centre came about. Then the problem was that it was built on commonage. There was about 52 tenants, and they had to, in order to draw down the grant, they had to have some sort of a signature. So they got the tenants all to sign a form to say that they had no objection to it. But then they want to bring it further then to get ownership of it, and all the tenants had to agree, and it had to go to the court in Milford to get it ratified by the judge. And I think, as far as I can remember, every tenant was, to make the thing legal, every tenant had to be paid a certain sum of money, which was 1 shilling. And that's how they got title to the property that's there.
where did you pick the bulk of your players for in the beginning?
Well, there were predominantly Fanad players. There was always a good core of players about Ballyhearing in that country between the waters, and there was always then a few more in Fanad. You had the Dohertys, and then you had Father Francie McAteer, and Father Francie had a younger brother who got drowned over in Duncanely. Was a brilliant footballer. He was a young lad, but he was only about 18, but he was a brilliant prospect.
What was his first name?
Eddie McAteer. If it were now, you could probably field a Fanad team on its own from an area, even though the population has dropped considerably. I mean, we wouldn't have half the population that we had then. The main competition then was Summer Cups. After that, and up Rathmullen Celtic were going strong for down the years, and a lot of the Fanad players played with Rathmullen Celtic, the likes of Father Dan Doherty, Father Michael, and Harry and Teddy Bliney, and they decided then that one competition, the likes of Buncrana would have been Fanad United. Melton would have been Rathmullen, but it was the same players were playing in both competitions. There was a small local league where local players played with, and if I can remember rightly, it was either a 7-a-side or a 9-a-side, and that was just before. After that, then it was Father Michael would have been involved in all that kind of stuff, because he was involved in the setting up of the Donegal League, him and Paddy McFadden and Dick Duffy and that. And that's how the Donegal League came about. And there was quite a number of clubs. The likes of Kerrygart had a team in the Donegal League. They didn't last. Well, I suppose you have the remnants of it now in Glenree. And you had a team from Ardara and places like that where there was no great Gaelic or no great soccer played in it. Well, they were very successful in the Donegal League in that they had, at that time, Rathmullen didn't have a team, and we had people like Aidan Kelly, God rest the man, Paddy Sheridan, people like that played with Fanad.
But what about Patsy Sheridan? Was he in?
Patsy would have played with Fanad, and sort of it was kind of an inter-exchange at the time.
Yes.
Patsy and Jim Kennedy and Jim Sheridan, and there was a young fella in Rathmullen, a brilliant player, a fella called Josie Coggins. I think his father might have been a guard in Rathmullen or something like that, but they moved away anyway, and I think he died fairly young. But he was a brilliant prospect. He was one of the best young fellas I ever seen playing. He would have been tight for. He would have run James Doherty and John McElwain and them boys very, very much to the. I would put James Doherty and John McElwain on the one level. The two of them were, they were brilliant in their own field. John McElwain was the best reader of a game ever I came across at junior level. James Doherty was the best picking out a good pass. He could pass a ball from halfway line into the corner, pinpoint, and he could also score goals.
And there wasn't much coaching in them days?
There was no coaching at all. There wasn't actually. There was at that time. There was summer cups were going. There were probably 5 nights a week away somewhere, I mean, there was Newton Cunningham, there was Buncrannon, there was Mavadal, there was no, and Castlederrig and Oma and Convoy. There was a full line, and every night there was a game somewhere. The Donegal League was sort of, I think it came to the stage where Fanad thought there was always pressure on them after winning so many Donegal League competitions that they should go into senior football. But Fanad couldn't support a team in senior football, and that's when the intermediate cup started then, intermediate league started, and the Fanad were one of the leading clubs in it, and they had, I think they won the intermediate cup 13 times or something like that. And they won 2 intermediate cups as well, but there was a great crop of players. They would have been the players that Father Michael was teaching in the college there in Falcara, and there was quite a number of Fanad fellas down there at the time, and there was a couple of fellas from, they had the likes of Eddie McGinley and McKeever and them boys, a fellow from Kelly Beggs, what was his name, I can't think of. McGowan, aye. He brought them all to play for Fanad. And that was the basis of the Fanad team. And then there was a few others. Even McConaughey would have got a few from up the Carrigans, Morris Tolan and people like that played with them. If you're winning, it's easy picking up players.
And then the Ulster Senior League, then it kind of...
The Ulster Senior League, in our estimation, what happened, the Ulster Senior League is they went summer football. Yes. And you was competing then with the GAA and Fanad, we couldn't compete with the GAA, and we struggled for a number of years, and then we decided we'll go back to the Donegal League. I mean, Fanad won 2 intermediate cups. They were in the final of 2 more. One of them they should have won, but they didn't. Well, that was.
They were competing with the best.
They were. I mean, they travelled to the country. They were in Cork and Waterford and Galway and Dublin. I mean, it was every year you were away, 3 or 4 away matches every year nearly. I think there was an agreement when the Donegal League was started that there was a number of prominent clubs that went to the Ulster Senior League, that they were promised if the Ulster Senior League didn't work out that they would get back into the Donegal League. And there never was any problem getting back to the Donegal League, because I would say they probably wanted them back anyway. And we struggled then for a while. There was several different people that ran the club, and Ollie took over then eventually, and Ollie was quite successful, and he had a core of people. He was teaching in the college in St Eunice, Letterkenny, and he had a core of young fellas there. Some of them Fanad lads that he used as the basis for the team, and then he had others, the local fellas that were there. I mean, like Arthur came on board then after all his time, and well, it was the end of the Ulster Senior League, and he would have been a big influence on the club going back to the Donegal League. I think he saw the writing on the wall anyway, and Arthur has been quite successful, and that he's won the Donegal League last year. He got promotion for the first year, and then he won the Donegal League twice.
There's a good crop of local players.
Yeah, and there's a lot of he has a few from outside which you could say that they're nearly in the parish. They're from across the bridge. A few boys are from Creasle in that area who Fanad themselves could field a reasonably good team of 11 players, but you have to have that backup, and he has 3 or 4 good lads coming across the bridge there every week, and it's very loyal, and it's convenient for them.
Your vision for the club from now on, how do you see it now?
Well, I mean, I talked to Arthur about it, and one of the things, Fanad never won the junior All-Ireland League, and I talked to Arthur about that, and he said we should make it one of our priorities that over the next number of years that we should be there or thereabouts to win the junior cup.
Swilly won that away back in the 60s.
Swilly won that. Cockhill won it last year, but Cockhill had retained all the players that they had in the Intermediate Cup and the Intermediate League, and they had a very strong side.
Okay, Evan, so when did your Fanad United career begin?
Well, it started in 1973 and I was at Falcara College and Father Mick was there at the time and he was manager of Fanad United and he used to take me with him on a Sunday because I was doing quite well in the teams in Falcara, and that time they only was allowed one sub, so in case anybody turn up or whatever I was brought along, and a lot of the times I'd be sub and some Sundays I wouldn't be, but that's when I started and I made my way into the team then, roughly 1974. I was in the team permanently in 75, and those 3 years that I was there, we won the Donegal League 3 years in a row. So that was, a milestone for me as a young fella.
Now, who were the players to look up to in that time?
Well, the players you looked up to that time would have been, you had John Caird, centre half, and John Doherty was in there, and then the man to me, the best player I've ever played with would be James Doherty. And so far as that, he was always with you and encouraging, and if you made a run, he gave you the ball, no matter what age you were, how young you were, he would give you the ball if you made the right run. And you had also Aidan Kelly, John Sweeney was there from Carrigart, may he rest, and Seamus Vaughan and James Duffy. They were all great footballers and they all made you play and they let you know and they kept you grounded if you weren't doing the business. So we moved on then. We didn't win much after that, maybe odd cups and that, and we won the league then with a very, very young team. I think it was 1978. That was the advent of John McElwain and Colin McGonigal and them boys. So, we had a very good young team that time and we won the league. And then there was a bit of a barren spell then until we went into, I think it was 1982. It's in and around those years. Anyway, James Doherty took over at that stage. So we won the league that year as well. Now, I was only a bit part because I was out injured at the time. So I only played a bit part in that team, but it was a very, very good team as well.
Would the Buncrana Cup been around that time now?
That's right, the Buncrana Cup. I played in the Buncrana Cup final. James Doherty was the manager at that time and we played in the Buncrana Cup final. I can't forget who we beat, but I know I still have the wee tankard. Whatever kind of stuff they had in them that time, it kept. I very rarely had to shine it, but probably one of the reasons that I kept it so long and I still have it and I still appreciate it, and a lot of people, would admire you if you were able to win the Buncrana Cup.
It was a prestigious competition.
It was a very, very prestigious competition. You could meet anybody in it. You could meet players from England. The Dundalk players would be in it. There would be teams from Derry, teams from Belfast and Linfield. You could get anybody there, players that played for those teams. And it was always a very tight competition, but very, very hard to win.
So you carried on playing for a few more years?
I did. We moved on then to the Ulster Senior League. Came into being then in 1985. Maybe someone can correct me. I'm only done off the top of my head, but 85 that time. So that became a big league, and I was lucky enough to be in that team. And I think we won the league the first year, and then the second year, then we went on to have a great run in the League Cup. That would be the Senior League Cup of Ireland, because if you did win the Ulster Senior League, the prize you got was that you could play in the Senior Cup the next year at the beginning of the year. So we played in that and we went all the way to the semi-final where Shamrock Rovers beat us in Trialoch, and I think it was 3-1 or 4-1 to beat us, but they were the top side in the League of Ireland at the time. But we had got rid of Galway United. We had beaten Sligo, Derry, Finn Harps, so we were on a roll. It was probably one of the best teams around at the time in intermediate football. And then that year we went on to win the Intermediate Cup. First time the Intermediate Cup was ever won was taken back to Donegal. We won it in Dublin in Dalymount Park. It was a great day, and we had some great players, so that was really great for the club. Tramore United, I think it was Tramore Celtic, I'm not too sure. That's who we beat in the final in Dalymount Park in Dublin. Yeah.
But that victory in the Brandywell against Derry was a high point as well.
That victory in the Brandywell was absolutely amazing. It was unbelievable, and the fact that it was Derry were only getting back into the League of Ireland at the time, and because their ground had been taken over by the British Army, and so they got the ground back. And as I was told later that there was at least 7,000 people at the match. So it was a tremendous atmosphere. I would say I've never played in an atmosphere like it before or after. you know, with all the competitions we won, but the crowd and everything, it was just unbelievable.
You'd be proud to be a Fanad man that night.
You were proud to be a Fanad man that night, and maybe the next day as well. I think 1994, I took over as manager from Father Mick, and you know, I must say that I was left a fantastic team of players at the time. It wasn't too hard to do, but I mean, I was still on the team, so it was a very, very nervous job. It was, you know, I was never too sure first time into management, but anyways, you know, the players around me were all my own mates anyway, so they were all behind me and they all helped me. So we were lucky enough, we went on to win the league and the Intermediate Cup in '94. We won it down in Galway. A fella called Paul McGeoghan scored the winner. So you can talk about a big night then. We had a big night in Letterkenny that night, but I remember putting, I'm sure Paul not mind, I put Paul into a taxi in Letterkenny, and not alone did I put him in the taxi on Monday evening, but I put the seatbelt on him and the seatbelt around the Intermediate Cup because I was afraid of my life it wouldn't come back. But anyways, fair play to him, he took it to Quigley's Point with him, and he took it back again, but that was a big one for us down there. So the next year then was I can be quoted on these, but I think it was 1995, 96 then. We won the league that year and we went to the final of the Intermediate Cup, and we were beaten in Dublin 1-0 by, I think it was Wayside Celtic, so that was very, very unlucky. But you know, that was it would be a down day, but at the same time it was a great achievement to get there. So that's you know, that was I had a good first 2 years as management anyway. But then come the sad part is that, you know, all the players around me, including myself, were starting to get on the wrong side of maybe 30 or whatever. So I had a very awkward job then of trying to dismantle and you know, rearrange a new outfit in Fanad. But I was so lucky as well, and so far that there was between Kerrykeel, Rathmullen, Whitestrand, all around that area there, and down in Fanad, there was a great crop of young fellas coming through. And you know, I managed to get another team together, and it was a very, very young team. But we won our share of trophies and leagues as well. But you know, it was an amazing time down there as well, because, and just to give you an idea, that one night, I think it'd be around 1999, maybe 2000, 26 of us arrived in Fanad to train, and it was a terrible night of frost, and the field was rock hard. And Patrick Swinney was there, and he said, you know, I think, he says, he lived beside the sea, and he says, I think the tide could be out, you know, we could go down and train. So we all drove down to the White Shore, and right enough the tide was away out, and Patrick took his car out near the tide and mine was on the other side, and we trained under the lights for nearly 2 hours, and when we were ready to go, the tide was just coming in, and my car was all right, but Patrick's was starting to go down on the wheels. But anyways, we had plenty of men to lift it out that time, you know, and we got out of it. But it just goes to show you that nothing stood in our way. You know, people will go down now, and if there was a hard pitch there, they'll go home, they mightn't even travel. But then everybody travelled, because the young people down there, they loved their football. So I was very lucky to have a crowd of young people like that there that loved their football. And so really that was, I suppose people ask me what was the best thing I ever did as a manager, and I would say that I kept Fanad United. I never won the league with that young crowd, but I kept them second in the league against tougher teams, and I kept them second with, maybe apart from Davy Derry, who had been in the late 20s, the rest were all under 23. So it was a tremendous achievement for the couple of years that I was there, but unfortunately, you know, everything has to come to an end. So in 2004 I decided I wasn't going to continue on. And the reason being was because, you know, I was travelling an awful lot. I was involved in the guards and Carrigans. I was the main driver of the patrol car. I was driving to Fanad to training, and from Carrigans and back, and I was at least maybe 12 hours a day in a car. So someone said to me one day when they were working with me, Eamon, if you ever die, you'll be killed in a car accident, he says, because you run it so often. So fair enough, the roads were getting busier, and that was the one and only reason that I left Fanad. It just got too much for me. I was really committed down there, but I was getting on in age too, and the traffic became more and more, and it was impossible to get, you know, to get things on time because of work. So that was the only reason I left. So I left in 2004. Father Mick had asked me when I was leaving who did I think would be the best man for the job. And at the time, Ollie was involved heavily in the schools, and he was manager of the Irish school team and that. And I thought, well, he was a Fanad player, so he might be interested in the job. So I told Father Mick to approach him, and Ollie took the job, and he was very, very successful in it. So Fanad has continued on and won trophies and won leagues. So
They're a club that's their record isn't equal to the county.
yeah, that's right. I would agree with that. But we had so many great players played for us, and we had so many players in the area that played for us, and you know, Arthur has taken up the baton, and to be fair to him, in very, very tough times, because he wasn't left very much at the time, and he got players together, and he has won the Donegal League now twice, which is a tremendous achievement, and he's still up there fighting now as well. So it's great to see it, and I know I'm involved in at the Kenny Rovers now, but I mean, Fanad will be the first result I'll be looking for, and I'm truly honest when I say that I admire Arthur for what he's done and what he is still doing, and I would say to him, you know, keep it going.
What was your earliest involvement with Fanad United?
Well, Arthur, I suppose going way back to the start, I suppose it would have been like when I was whatever 17 or 18 years of age. Myself and Danny Kelly and probably John McElwain and that, we were kind of brought into some of those games at that time, with the likes of James Doherty and John Doherty and John Kerr-Amunya and all those, you know, top players. So I suppose that really was the beginning of my involvement with Fanad United. After that then, I suppose it progressed then to the following year in 1979 when we won the FAI Intermediate or the Under-18 Cup, which, you know, was a huge achievement, like for a small area in North Donegal. And as things stand at the moment, we're still the only Donegal team that have ever won that competition. So it kind of goes to show like what the achievement actually was. And I suppose it's only now when you look back and you see how many teams have failed to win it. And you know, you never thought at the time like how big an achievement it actually was. And back in that day as well too, Father Michael was obviously the manager, and it was basically made up of boys from the PCC in Falcara College, and a lot of local boys ourselves. We would have had Hugh Blinny, Cahill Gavigan, Danny Kelly, Johnny Martin, Daniel Freel, and then you add in the Falcara boys in, Charlie McGeever, Eddie McGinley, Tom Call. So it was a huge achievement to bring that there trophy back to Donegal.
Good talent there. Some of them players are now to play senior football.
A lot of good players in that squad. And the amazing thing about it as well too, I think we had 13 players, and as far as I can remember, it probably took us about 11 or 12 games to win that competition, and we travelled all over the country. But I suppose when you have that type of a player on the team, you know, it probably makes things a bit easier when you do have good players around.
Well, and it raised the profile of the club as well.
Raised the profile of the club as well too, and as I say, we're the only team still to have won it. And at the time, it was a John Giles. He was kind of the main sponsor as such, and it was Eamon Dunphy that presented the cup in Ramelton that day. But I think it was only John McElwain that went on to get, we'll say, an Ireland cap out of it, which, well, it probably still doesn't make much sense because there are a lot of good players in that pitch that day.
Oh.
Well, after that there then, Arthur, I suppose, what I kind of moved up then to play a bit of senior football in that there, and I was away I was in Dublin then for 10 years. So basically I came back in 1990 and signed up, rejoined the club again.
Yeah, you're too modest. Who did you play the senior football with?
Well, when I was away in that there, I would have played with a few clubs. I'm sure all the boys have a fair idea who they are. Like, you know, I get plenty of slagging about it anyhow. Like, so, no, like the likes of Galway United and what he calls Athlone Town, Shelbourne, Limerick City. It was great experience. Like, you know what I mean. And no, it was a good time, all right. You know, so. As I say, came back in 1990, and I think I ended up in Finn Park then for a season playing against Fanad in the League Cup. But then I came back then and we won the Intermediate Cup then, and again, like it was top class players all over the place, like, you know, Kenny Harkin, again, Eamon McConaughey, Davy Deary, John McElwain, Paul McGeoghan. You know, like. If you got in the starting 11, George Greer, like if you got in the starting 11, you were a lucky man, just basically. Well, after that there, then like what I call I kind of got involved in a bit of the underage coaching part of it, like, you know, and I would have taken a couple of under 18 teams and done very well, like, you know. Again, a lot of good young players in those squads. Gareth Harkin was there. Paul Friel, Declan Friel, David Walsh. I would have had James Doherty and Christy Conahan. A lot of good players. A lot of good players that kind of, you know, went on and played for Fanad and are still playing for other teams in the top divisions here. Yeah.
Would Paddy Burger be around that time?
Burger was there as well too. One of the best players ever to play for Fanad United, without a question of doubt. Without a doubt. Yeah, Burger was there as well too. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. There were so many good players, Arthur. So many good players. You'd have to have a list here in front of me just to go through them all. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So no, after that, you know what I mean. What I call it was there whenever Eamon McConaughey was manager and whenever Ollie Horgan was manager, and just done my piece for the club, and that's just kind of where I finished up. Well, at the moment things are going well. What I call Fanad they've had 3 great seasons there under Arthur, and it wasn't easy for Arthur, and everybody acknowledges that, but he stuck with it, and you know there's a kind of a pathway there now for players to go from, we'll say from the Mulroy Academy to the under 18 team, to the reserve team, to the first team. So like there's, you know, if young lads are prepared to put in the work and they're prepared to listen and, you know, bide their time, they'll get into a first team, be it Fanad United, be it White Strand, be it Kerrykeele, whatever it is. So there's a pathway there for those young players, because there's a huge amount of work going on underage in the area. Yeah, the numbers of training is brilliant down there as well too, and there's a lot of young lads that are playing under 16 and under 18 coming in now to train with the development side, and you know, on any night down there you could have up to 30 young lads down training, which is brilliant to see, like, you know.
And sometimes it might be lying in a pitch, other times be cutting grass, other times be taking players to matches, and anything at all. There was no hard and fast committee the very first year, and it was mostly summer cups that were played, and they had a very successful year. They won 6 summer cups in 1970, and there was a fundraising bazaar before the Christmas before that I was meant to be going back to school the night the bazaar was on, and decided to not go back and stay for the bazaar, and ended up helping out, and maybe that's where he saw me. And from there on then the Donegal League started, and I was the secretary of the club then for many years, and that entailed a lot of work corresponding with the media, and especially in the good times when we had all the cup runs. And then when the first time that Father Michael stopped managing, he was appointed in Gweedore, and James Doherty took over, and I was assistant to James for the few years that James was in charge, and he won the Donegal League and also the prestigious Buncrana Cup, which was the only time it was ever won, which was a great achievement. And there were so many good teams that played in that cup. I mean, real good teams, and they didn't win it because the standard was so high down there. It was,
any idea of the year?
it was 1984, and it was the 50th anniversary of the Buncrana Cup. Pat Doohan was our centre forward that year, the late Pat, and on the cup final was to be on the Sunday, and on the Friday night Pat was killed in a road accident, and the cup was put back for a week, and Colin McGonigal was playing for Athlone at the time, and always the games were on a Sunday that time, the League of Ireland, and as it turned out they had no game that Sunday, and Colin was able to play for us in the cup final, and he scored 2 goals. That was the 70s that the 3 leagues, Donegal leagues, were won in a row, 73, 74, 75, and then it wasn't won again till 79, and then 84. Then the next league was won, the next Donegal League and the Buncrana Cup. That was in James Doherty's time, and then Eamon McConaughey took over as player manager when the Ulster Senior League started in 86. Father Michael was the general manager. They did it between them, and that was the golden era, in my opinion, for the 10 years from 86 to 96. It included 2 intermediate cups and another appearance in the final in 96. And the teams were just amazing, especially the first intermediate team. It was just a brilliant team. Like, they beat all the League of Ireland sides as well, Harps, Derry, Galway, and they played in the FAI Senior Cup and numerous. We had a great tussle with St James's Gate. We had 3 games with them, 2 replays, and eventually lost at home. Missed a penalty which could have won the game. And then there was the Bray Wanderers. We beat them 4-1 down in Bray in the cup as well. But to me, the 88 team was the best ever. The team was so well balanced, and there was no coaching done. Them fellas knew what to do. Like, they knew. And when you think in the final that, like, Charlie McGeever, Morris Tolan and Paddy McBride, Paddy Fenney didn't start. Like, they were the subs. It'll give you an idea what the team was like. Beating Derry City in the Brandywell was just the big game, really.
I was at that one.
Especially after going a goal down, we lost a bad goal early on, and to come back. I thought there was one player stood out that day, and he mightn't get the credit for it. Eamon McConaughey. He had the gamma in his pocket. I thought the bigger the game, the better Eamon played. You know, he was just a one-off.
Would you say that really put Fanad on the map?
It did. Oh, it did, sure. And there was an unforgettable day in Thrilo against Cherry Orchard. They scored a late goal, and it was controversy from the word go. The 2 teams clashed colours, and they wouldn't change, and you know the rest of it. But Cherry Orchard equalised in injury time, and Davy Deary went up and got the winner after that, and he was the one player they wanted sent off during the match. He was a bit too strong for them, that was all.
Yeah, all that.
And then I was involved with the youth team in the 80s, co-managed with Patrick Sweeney. And they were the first Donegal team to win the treble. And they were all local lads. And that gave me great satisfaction to be able to put that team together and do so well. And we played on the 17 tournament. We were beaten in Limerick. And the following year we got to the semi-final of the youth club, or the youth cup, which we lost to Galway United. We had beaten Bowes and Dalymount on the way, and Monaghan and Garta Keegan and various other teams, Sligo Rovers at home. And it still bugs me that we didn't win that FAI Cup, because I thought we were good enough. We didn't just perform on the day in Galway. We lost 2 early goals and it was very hard to come back. Then we won another youth league later on. It would have been, Paul was still in that. There were an under 16 Northwest League first, and we had them in that, and then we took them on and won the youth league as well. We had a shootout down in Glenveigh. That was
What year?
2000. 2000.
You played yourself
Mm-hmm.
for Fanad United, probably an underage or schoolboy or whatever, so take us on from that.
Well, I suppose it started for me really growing up. I suppose I couldn't miss in the house. It was just the topical talk all the time was Fanad United, simply because my dad was so heavily involved in it and did so much work. You couldn't really miss it. And I mean, I seen up close just how much he put into it. And I think Patrick Sweeney was the other one I would have to mention in that. I mean, the two of them were forever on the phone. Father Mick, Eamon McConaughey, the usual, the same crowd. There were a few of them, the committee, they all worked very closely together. I saw all the work that they put into it, so I suppose it was inevitable I would be involved someday. But I suppose my earliest memories would have been around the time of the start of the Ulster Senior League, and you just looked forward to a Sunday getting to go and watch that team playing. You know, nowadays people talk about Mo Salah and all these boys as heroes. We had John Mack and Kenny and all them boys. To get to go and watch them boys every Sunday was just, that was a privilege, to be honest. I mean, that League Cup run, the FAI Cup runs, all the giant killing, beating Derry in the Brandywell, all them times, the intermediate cup finals. There were so many great days watching that team. And I suppose then, for me then, I would have started playing underage. There was an under 14, 15 league maybe in the 90s. But I suppose the time that stands out for me was that I was lucky enough to be involved in that absolutely brilliant youth team we had in the late 1990s. We had a few good runs in the FAA Youth Cup. We got to the last 16 the first year. We knocked out Sligo Rovers and Monaghan United that year, Monaghan down in Garta Keegan. We lost down in Limerick 1-0. That just didn't happen for us on the day. And then the following year, we got to the semi-final. We had a great run. Beat a team from Mayo, team from Tipperary, team from Sligo. A very good Galway United team beat us in the semi-final. And again, we didn't perform on the day. Just on the day, they were a better team than us. But we did make up for that then. Shortly after that then, we made a wee bit of history in that we were the first team ever that won the treble. The Donegal Youth League, the Colin Breslin Cup, and indeed the Ulster Youth Cup. We did that, it was late 98, and then the Ulster final was beginning in 99, and I would easily say that was the best team ever I played in. And I think what made it even more special was that it was pretty much a local team. It was nearly all Fanad lads. We'd all grown up together. We'd all been at school together, and we had maybe 3 or 4 that weren't Fanad natives, but we only had to go up the road a wee bit. Here we didn't have to go any further than Milford. We had a couple of boys from Whitestrand, John Doherty, Paul Lynch, Mark Farron was there up from Milford. That's as far as we had to go. We were all at school together, and as I say, it's been done since, but the one thing I'm very proud of is that nobody can take it away from us that we were the first team that did it. I was honoured to be the one that lifted the 3 trophies, and it's something, it's my greatest memory in football, being part of that side. And, you know, as I say, nobody can ever take it away from us. This club has always been about winning, and that team was always about winning. It didn't matter who we played. And what I always found about that team, whether it was the team bottom of the league or whether it was a League of Ireland team in the Youth Cup, we treated them all the same. You prepared the same for every game. You never went out thinking, oh, we only have to turn up. We did the right things all the time. Again, there was no wild amount of coaching, just everybody was let play themselves, let do their own thing. But there's definitely one game for me that stands out. And the whole time, if I had to pick one individual game, was the day that we beat Bohemians at Dalymount Park in the Youth Cup in '98. And ironically, it was 10 years to the very day that the senior team had played Bohemians in Dalymount Park in the Senior Cup. And it was the legendary Jackie Jameson that was the difference between the two teams that day. Bows won 1-0 that day. The ironic thing about that game in Dalymount that we beat Bows in the Youth Cup, we beat them 1-0. We scored the winner at the exact same time in the last minute of extra time. And it was at the very same end of the ground and in the same goal that Kenny Harkin had scored the winner in the Intermediate Cup final 10 years before it. So I don't know, did somebody conspire for that to happen, or was it fate or irony, whatever you would call it? But that's one of my abiding memories. Went on then, I suppose, played then, lucky enough to play in the senior team, and I suppose the outstanding memory from that would be 2006, when we had the famous 7 games in the playoff. We had a run in the Intermediate Cup to the semi-final, which meant, and we had a run to the League Cup final here, so it meant a lot of backlog games. Kildrum Tigers and ourselves were going for the league that year. Kildrum had finished their season. We still somehow had 7 games to play in the space of about 2.5 weeks. And every game it was, we just took it one game at a time.
You're 21 points behind.
We were 21 points behind, so we needed to win the 7 games to force a playoff, which happened. You took it one at a time, and you weren't thinking, right, we have 6 to go, we have 5 to go. It was just, great, who we're playing next. Every game at a time, still no wild expectations. The closer it got, I suppose it got into the back of people's minds, well, this could happen here. Eventually we won the 7 games. That left us with a playoff in Ballieary against Kildrum. Probably the biggest crowd that ever was at an Ulster Senior League game. I think there were about 1,500 people at that night. Again, we did it the hard way when we went a goal down. About halfway through the second half, Marty McAteer got an equaliser, and then in extra time, when it was looking like it was going to go to penalties, Marty hit one from about 35 yards. A goal good enough to win a Champions League final, never mind a playoff, and we ended up winning it 2-1. That was under Ollie Horgan, and I mean, we had a great bunch of lads in that team too. We had Berger, we had Darren and Paul Nash, we had Arthur, we had Marty, as I mentioned, got the goal. Paddy McGrennan had come back from Harps, so it was a good side that time too. But that was a
Kosha.
He was playing too that year. That's right. Shane Sweeney. We had so many. That was a good side that year too. That was a dramatic one that year. But that'd be probably, I left myself then a couple of years after that. But that would probably be my abiding memories from playing. Back in the year 2000, I managed the women's team here for a couple of years, and we were a penalty shootout from winning a treble in the year 2000. The Women's League was actually very strong that time. You had a very strong Letterkenny Rovers team, an up-and-coming Kilmacrennan team that went on to have national success after that. And the 3S were going for the league that year, but it came down to a winner-take-all shootout down in Kilmacrennan between Kilmacrennan and ourselves. After a night of drama and missed penalties and rows and whatnot, we won the game 2-1. We held on at the end. A week later then, we went to Ballieary. We beat Letterkenny in the cup final, and then the following week, the Intermediate Cup final. We had a great run in the Intermediate that year. We'd been in Galway, played a Sligo team, got to the final against a Clare team, and we were 1-0 up in the second half. We lost an equaliser with about 10 minutes to go, I would say. And then it went to penalties, and it just wasn't to be. It wasn't our day. They won it, and I mean, as you know, anything can happen in a penalty shootout, but just wasn't to be our day. But great team we had that year. We had some brilliant players, and I suppose the icing on the cake maybe then, and another very proud day in the club's history, was that 2 of the players from that team, Maz Sweeney and Marie Gallagher, received international call-ups then later on. And I remember going down to Drogheda to watch an international game, and it was a very, very proud day that 2 of our players standing togged out for Ireland. You know, it was as I say, another very, very proud day in the club's history.
Do you remember any other girls in that team?
I can indeed. Claire Ferry, Bernie Logue, Madonna Friel, Katrina O'Brien, Christine McBride was our goalkeeper. She's an absolutely brilliant goalkeeper at the time. As I said, very, very strong team we had that time, you know. And again, a lot of local girls in it. Noelle Hagan, Josephine McFadden from just up the road too. You know, they were all from not too far away, and like it showed there was plenty footballing talent about.
Can you remember your first involvement with Fanad United?
Well, I can. It was back in started Ulster Senior League in 1986, and I'd been kind of between clubs at the time, and Ulster Senior League was starting, and Father Michael Sweeney was gathering up the Fanad team at the time, and I was friendly with Eamon McConaughey, and Eamon got me involved in the setup down there, and I was a long way from Carrigan's, but I was living here in Letterkenny, so up and down, and it was great to be involved at the time, and especially in the Ulster Senior League, and we had such a successful first season, and things gradually went on from there. The team I mind from the first time we won the Intermediate Cup in '88, I think it was, and that the team that day, and I mind it well, was Bosco in goals, and Liam Sweeney and Eamon McConaughey were the two fullbacks, Eddie McGinley and Danny Kelly. Then we had Michael O'Donnell, John Michael Wayne and Barry McGowan, and Sean Ferry, Johnny Kelly and myself. And with a fairly strong bench as well. You were only allowed 2 subs to come on at that time, but you're allowed to name 3. And the 2 that were brought on were Charlie McKeever and Maurice Tolan. And the 3rd sub that day, God rest him, you can't forget him, was Paddy McBride, Paddy Finney. And during some of our campaigns, Paddy was probably the quietest man we had, and we were down in Dublin playing one time, and he got red carded for foul abusive language to the referee, which I think it was somebody else, but just so happened the referee turned around and saw Paddy first, and the poor man got red carded. But we didn't win too many games by more than a goal. A couple of them went to penalties, and I think we had 2 replays from what I remember, so there was nothing easy about it. And then the final in Dalymount, you could remember bits and pieces of it, you know, it was kind of one of them, a blur type thing, but it wasn't a great game of football. I do remember that because we saw a video of it years ago and we didn't perform. It wasn't a great exhibition stuff, I'll put it that way, but we got the job done, and lucky enough we scored, or lucky enough I scored in the last kick of the game, basically, from all John Michael Wayne's work. But needless to say, we celebrated a bit that night, but it was a great feeling to win that Intermediate Cup for the first time. So it was, the bit I wanted to say was about Eddie McGinley receiving the trophy from Fran Fields, who was the FAI president that day in 1988 down in Dalymount Park. It was an amazing scene to see a Donegal man handing a Donegal man the trophy for the first time ever, Intermediate Cup. It was fantastic, but we repeated the feat then 7 years later, the Intermediate Cup again. Eamon McConaughey had taken over as manager the second time round. Lots of changes in the team. He had, Paul McGuigan, who scored the winner that day against College Corinthians, and you had Colin McGonigal, George Greer, and Davy Deary, and Damien Bradley, Brenton Gillespie, Pete Duffy. You had so many, Oisin Harkin. We had some great cup runs, and we got the semi-final of the League Cup, defeating, well, obviously everybody probably knows it, but Harps and Sligo and Galway in the quarter-final, and the big one was beating Derry in the Brandywell that day. And then they get playing Shamrock Rovers, who were the team at the time, with all the Burns, and you know they were a top team. Play them and Fanad. It was a culmination of a lot of good stuff at the time. But we had a lot of other great cup runs. We beat Bray up in Bray in the cup 4-0. Like, you know, for an intermediate team to go and beat a senior team 4-0, and could have been. I think their keeper might have been man of the match if they didn't give it to the one-on team that day. And then one of the games I always mind too was we were drew away to Bows in the cup, And God rest Jackie Jameson too, as far as I know, he was killed in a car crash. He scored and they were a good Bows team that day. And like they go down there and perform in Dalymount, it was fantastic, like for a supposed junior team at the time. But
How did you enjoy your time in Fanad?
I loved every bit. The crack was good. That's probably was a lot of, maybe in between seasons, maybe the crack was too good. But we're all great friends. Still, you've been in touch with a lot of the boys, and you never ever forget your time down there. It was fantastic. We were joined later by my father, who came down and stayed for a long time.
The first, I used to travel down to see him play, and then I got, for years, running about. McKeever got me involved with rubbing boys, and so that's when I started off.
Right.
You know, worked there for good by my father Mick. I really enjoyed every minute of it. Next time McConaughey took over then. Knew him for a long time. Picking up players here, there and everywhere in the road, like. I'd have been always at a full load by the time I got to Fanad, like.
You were coming from
Carrigan's.
And
Sometimes went to Derry and to Muff and Letterkenny and back into Fanad. Saturday time they used to go to Lifford, Rafo, back to Fanad again. But it was good times, and I was going to leave the time McConaughey packed it up. The time Ollie he phoned me, so I said, well, 10 years with Ollie, you know.
And what was your role there when you were there?
Odd job everywhere. Did the physio work for them, you know, give them a rub here, there and that. Right. I remember Liam Sweeney, for instance, saying to me during match time, listen, I'll be going down a few times. There'll be nothing wrong with me, all I want is a drink of water. That was lumpy, like he just...
That's still the case, isn't it?
Still with high. But I was down there for about 26, 27 years or something. I enjoyed every minute of it, up and down.
Yeah. Good club.
Good club, and the people down there were very, very good, and they looked after me well, like, you know.
Yeah. So I suppose, Kenny, you keep in touch or keep an eye on Fanad still. How do you see them now in the present time?
I've seen them a few times this year already, and in the Donegal League, and the guys running the club now all have played with the club. Obviously, Arthur and Paul and Darren Nashes, they both, or the three of those, have all played with the club, and it's great to see them involved, and fair play to them, because I wouldn't be involved too much myself. I just go and watch football, and it's great to see the enthusiasm they have for football, and they've been successful for a couple of seasons now, and Fanad have seemed to got themselves back where they should be. They were in the doldrums. I don't know if they would class it as that, but it looked like they were in the doldrums for a year or two. But it's great to see the boys involved and doing so well, and they are, I can say it for certain, I've seen them a couple of times, they are enthusiastic and fair play to them, and they're bringing plenty of young fellas into the club setup, and hopefully they continue to be successful.
Okay, Darren, so when did your involvement with Fanad United begin?
It began, I signed with Ollie when Ollie first went down there. I think it was about 2005. But I'd actually played a game for Fanad in, I think it was the Pennyburn Cup final back a number of years before that. Damien Bradley, I think, may have been injured or something. So I played under Eamon McConaughey at that time. And Eamon had asked me to sign at a later stage too, but it just didn't suit at the time. I can't remember, I was playing maybe in the North, or I was in the county squad, I think maybe in the Gaelic, I can't remember. But anyway, at the time then when Ollie came knocking, it suited me to go down to Fanad at that point, you know, so I was delighted to get the chance.
What is the first team that you were a part of there?
At that stage, I think there was, coming towards the end of Eamon's time, I think there was a lot of there's a lot of young players left over there, you know, and the young boys, like, I suppose at the time you had Berger and you had John Dock there, and then you had young fellas like the Callahan brothers and Michael Hardy, David Walsh was another one. So and then you had all, you know, Arthur and And I think Shane Sweeney actually may have come back. So we had a good bunch of players. Darragh Patton was another one that was there. Shimmy Kosha. So look, that's just to name a few. I think Big Davy joined us then too shortly after that. So there was a good squad of boys there, and then Ollie added myself and my brother Paul, and Philip Buchanan was another man he added at that stage, you know. I remember just even from the first pre-season alone, you know, and just Ollie's attitude to everything, you know. It was a good positive environment, good bunch of lads, like, and you knew things were going the right direction, you know. And at that stage, like, Ollie he was very disciplined, and again, you know, his attention to detail when it came to the teams we were playing against and all was brilliant, you know. And he would have had his P's and Q's. There wasn't many players in the county. Actually, there wasn't many players in the country that Ollie didn't know of, especially young players, you know. So he knew everything about them. So he always went into games well prepared. But on top of that, like, he was a good coach, and you'd Colm there as well. Not forget Colm and Tommy. So you had a great backroom team there. And Patrick Sweeney was never too far off the scene as well if you needed something, you know.
So then, did the results start coming?
Yeah, the results from straight away from pre-season, like, the results were coming, you know, and the first season, I can't remember now if we won the league the first season, but we definitely won a couple of cups that time, you know. But over that period of time, you know, under Ollie, you know, you were nearly always challenging for a league title. You were always aspiring, like Fanad always did, to go well in the FAI Cup, intermediate and senior if you got into it. And in that time, like, we know, with some really memorable games, you know, from the league, actually, that time that we beat Kildrum in the playoff out in Ballyar, probably one of the biggest games ever in the Ulster Senior League. So we had 7 games to go. Kildrum had played all their games, so listen, any betting man would have been putting their money on Kildrum, and like, all we needed was to slip up once, you know. And there's plenty of teams were trying their utmost even just to get a draw off you at that stage. But you know, Ollie would never look at this is part and parcel of it. Like, he when it came to getting prepared for games, it didn't matter whether you're playing the bottom of the table team or the top. So he made sure we weren't complacent, and we won all our games, and then we went to playoff. And look, we'd beaten Kildrum a number of times over those couple of seasons, and we were pretty confident we went into the playoff, and really tight game and an exciting game, and won that one. So that was one of the most memorable ones. But then we had a couple of big ones too in the FAI Cup, you know, between intermediate challenges with Avondale. There was a few battles there. Really good Avondale side, unfortunately, and we came up short a few times in the semi-finals against them. And then you would have we played Shamrock Rovers, really good Shamrock Rovers team under Roddy Collins. We played them up in Dalymount. We played Longford United as well when they were in the Premier Division, you know, a good Longford side. So we played a number of teams like that, and just came up short, but, you know, didn't embarrass ourselves against that kind of level of team. And like, that's something that Fanad had been doing for years. You know, I remember as a young fella going down and watching them playing the likes of St James's Gate, you know, where you had crowds that you would have seen at the likes of Finn Park or somewhere, you know, on a big cup night or something like that. But look, I had a bad injury after that in the last minute of a cup final against Swilly, actually, about a week before Christmas. I can't remember what year that might have been, maybe 2011, 2012, was it? Can't remember exactly, but it was by the time I had recovered from that, I played one more season, and then I think the move to summer soccer came about, and that didn't exactly suit me at the time. And look, there was other younger players coming through, you know, and like, Fanad had done a lot in that period of time too. You know, they had the under-19 team in the League of Ireland and all as well, and they were going the right direction, you know, and had been for a while, you know, with a lot of very good youth teams and all there, you know. I suppose being a goalkeeper coach came around, it's just a natural progression, because as goalkeepers you're normally used to training in packs, and, you know, since I was about maybe 19 or 20, I'd been used to coaching at summer camps and different stuff like that, you know. I suppose the likes of Arthur asked me back then to Fanad, and my brother Paul was already there with him as well. You know, when you go down there training, you see every night you're there, like, you know, there's the numbers at the minute, you're 34, 35 people. There's a lot of young players there. There's a good mix of experience and youth, and you know, you leave training every night with a smile on your face. So, and that's why you coach. You know, if you weren't happy doing it, you wouldn't be doing it. An important thing with Fanad at the minute as well is I don't think there's ever been as many local players involved in the senior team. Maybe there was in the earlier stages, but definitely there's a real hunger there locally, and there's some serious talent coming from around that Fanad area, and it's hard to fit them all in. There's that many there at the minute, you know, but it's good. We've got competition for places, and you know, a good youth setup, and well, a development squad as we call it, you know. And you know, just trying to teach them how to play, you know, the right way. You know, you've got the likes of Paul Lynch there as well, and Dougie and all helping out as well. So and more experienced players like Paul Friel coming back into the fold.
Your involvement. And with your involvement with Fanad United. So maybe to begin with, how did you first get involved with Fanad United?
Right, okay, that's a difficult start, Arthur. In a nutshell, it was in 1989 in September, Arthur. I got a job in the school up there in St. Junan's College. Art Friel, as you know well, from Fanad, was a guard in Galway and was heavily involved with Salthill Devon, who I was playing with. So effectively, between word of mouth, there was no mobile phones in days, obviously. Between word of mouth, I remember starting work on a Monday morning, and on the Thursday evening, I was down playing in the Pat2 Memorial Cup on the Thursday night in Gweedore. I knew George Greer from the college's football, and basically didn't look back, Arthur. I'm not quite sure what hour of the morning we got back out of there, to put it that way to you. But that was really where it came from, and probably, you know, none of us looked back after that night, and we moved on, you know, to have great days and great times there, Arthur.
So what kind of a setup did you come into with Fanad United? What sort of a team or standard of football?
There were men, Arthur. You know, Father Mick. Obviously, you had. You can nearly name the team. You had Bosco, you had Eamon. Charlie was there. Big Eddie. Liam Sweeney. Michael O'Donnell. Kenny was there for one of the years at the start. Sean Ferry. Johnny and Danny, obviously. George. Cullum came along then in the second year, and you had John Mack, obviously, and you know, there were men, and I just think, you know, with all my involvement in football before and after, you know, I think the togetherness of that generation, of that group, is something that I think even to this day, you know, they keep contact with you and vice versa, Arthur, and that doesn't normally happen nowadays, to put it that way.
Yeah. There was a close unit there.
Yeah, like we played together, we trained hard, we socialized together, and there were good days, you know, like, you know, we're all at each other's weddings, and you know, that type of thing, Arthur, and it's not the done thing anymore, unfortunately. It's just, you know, and that's not a criticism of this generation, but there was huge togetherness, you know, with obviously with the Sweeneys, with Nora, with Patrick, with Moira, who came on board as secretary when I was managing there, and there was great togetherness with the whole community, not just the team. You know, I remember the trips to Dublin and the intermediate cups and that, and they were great, like, you know. But you know, on a Sunday night, it didn't matter where you were. You didn't get home till the same hour of the morning, whether you're in Dublin, Cork, or in Fanad, Arthur. But there were good days, and I think it was a great education for for all of us that were there at the time, and you know, like it's nothing but good memories, Arthur, of those days.
Good. So did you have much success in that team?
We won a lot of Ulster senior leagues, both under Father Mick and when Eamon took over. In '95 in Terryland here in Galway, actually, we bet College Corinthians, Fergus, my God, I hope I get his name right, managing College Corinthians. Back date, excuse me, and I know Fergus well from his Cove Ramblers days. Remember, Paul scored, Paul McGeoghan. There were, you know, that was great success. Remember the following year actually losing an intermediate final in Talca Park against Wayside, 1-0, and I think we felt that maybe intermediate cup finals would come around every second year, Arthur, but that's not the case. You know, at them days, you had the likes of Tramore and Cork that were very strong. You had Crumlin, you had Wayside themselves, you know, and then the following years, when I was managing, you had your Avondales, to an extent, Cherry Orchards. And I remember winning a semi-final under Eamon on penalties. Jamie and Bradley was in goals up in Glebe North. We probably never should have won it. But I think that's the year, actually, we went on to win the intermediate in '95. But, you know, I don't think there was any special, you know, standout days. I just think, you know, relentlessly, week in, week out, we were strong, regardless of who we had playing for us or who was out injured. And I just think the togetherness, Arthur, was something that we probably took for granted. And it's only now looking back on it, it was worth its weight in gold, to put it that way.
Yeah. So when you moved on to management then, how did you find that role? Was that your first effort?
Yeah, I'm not sure the years, Arthur, you know better. I think it was around 2003, 2004. Eamon, who had huge success, moved on, and it was between Father Mick and Colin McGonigal. You know, on to me. I was coaching in the school. I'd done a bit of coaching with the colleges in Galway, and it was something I was interested in. To be honest with you, I not that I was anything to write home about, but injury-wise, my knees gave up on me with a number of ACL operations back in the old days. And probably that's why you ended up in coaching. I always liked the coaching side of it, regardless of the sport. And we went in with a new side, with men again, Arthur, you know, including your son and Paul as well. And you had the Nashes, you had the Rathmullen crew, you know, that they were huge. You had Dara, you had Berger, you had Doc, John, Eamon Sheridan temporarily. Paddy was there, Paddy McGrannon had come back from League of Ireland and certainly was still a League of Ireland player with his ability and strength. Big David Deary was still there from Eamon's time, and you know, Shane Sweeney, you'd Shamey Kosha was there, and young Shamey Friel. Like I shouldn't be naming names because I'm leaving out some that
maybe
I'll probably get
Sean Barrett.
Yeah. Well, Sean was there under Eamon's time. Sean had moved to Milford when I came in, but it was a kind of a new group, but they had the same core values, Arthur. They did huge togetherness. Yes, we socialised together. We went to their weddings, that type of thing, which is massive. And while it was a new side, it took a while. I think we won a Knockalla Cup and a League Cup in its first year that I was in charge. And the following year we won the league. Am I correct in saying it was the time we had 7 games to win? Yeah. I may get that wrong.
That's right.
Yeah, Colin McGonigal was with me with the group. You young players there with Gareth and Davitt that blended in with the older lads, and it was a good mix, a good group, a good changing room, and basically we ended up being successful. I think the following year with the 7 games we had to win, we had a good run in the Intermediate Cup, and we lost to Avondale. Funny enough, John here in Galway, John Coughlin was managing them, narrowly lost by a corner kick in Fanad, and they went on to win it and won 3 intermediates in a row. We fell short in that, but we won the league with we had to win the last 7 games, and I remember people, and you remember it too. I mean, I think Paul was playing with Kildrum at the time?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was.
Arthur obviously was with us, and I remember we had 7 games that the other teams had finished. I remember people saying to me, "I will show you're at an advantage that these are all finished." Well, let me tell you, we went to Drumkeen, who put out a side. It was like a summer cup game. We went to Convoy, who put out the best side that they could put out. I remember winning 3-2 and 2-1 very narrowly, and then obviously the playoff with Marty. With Marty McAteer in Balliar, like, you know, young Sean Mack there, a new generation, and you know, they got the rewards for a group that were closely knit and worked and socialised together, Art, which was hugely important, to put it that way too.
That's right. And how would you look at the standard of football looking back on that then at the time?
I've used the word there, Arthur, you know, both when I was playing and when I was managing, there were men. I'm not saying they're not men now, but you know, it's changed. It's you got to change with it. You can't go with the roaring and shouting and motivating. You know, the game moves on, and you got to move on with it. But certainly there were men. You know, they took their knocks. They didn't shy from a tackle and ability, Arthur. You know, but physically were very strong. Football wise, were, you know, they were dogged, and ability wise also. And you know, I think the ones that came in my time, the likes of Darren and Paul Nash, that what they gave back to the club after my time, don't mind what they gave playing wise, you know, is testimony of what they've put back into the club. And others, the likes of the lads in Rathmullen, that have put back into football there also.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm just thinking about the players there. So as it stands, do you ever get to see Donegal League at all now? Or
I most certainly did when I was with Finn Harps up to 2 years ago, Arthur. Obviously I've spent a lot of time in Galway here, where I watch the Galway Junior League, which is relevant to where I'm at. To answer your question, no, I've watched very few Ulster Senior League games when it was still there. Obviously, I watched it when I was with Finn Harps when the 19s were in that league. But no, Arthur, I don't be on the ground there any weekend. I'm Galway based certainly every weekend, and I go to the junior games there, and the under 19s or under 20 games from Galway are involved. So no, I mean I watched Cockhill play in the junior final in Terryland last year, that type of way. But no, as regards, I'm not on the ground there at weekends, Arthur. So the answer to that is no. I've lost contact for obvious reasons, because it's not my role anymore.
As a club, how did you find Fanad, or how would you rate Fanad United as a club?
I remember telling this story to one or two people close to me. You know, I've used the word togetherness. I remember, you know, both as a player getting injured and being looked after, but in particular as a manager, and with Cullum along with me, and the likes of Patrick, Nora, you know, Eamon was involved to an extent. You had Moira as well, that came in as secretary. They backed you to a hilt, Arthur, you know, and whether you're 100% wrong or 100% right, they backed you. And it's huge. It's huge for management that a board backs you to the hilt, rightly or wrongly. But you know, I remember meetings with the Ulster Senior League in the Mount Errigal and different hotels where, of course, they got hot and heavy. That's what it was about. But there was never a doubt that the likes of Patrick wasn't with you. And you know, we great nights, we great days, both on and off the pitch. But very much, you know, we looked after each other, and we kept an eye out for each other. And that's something that, you know, in recent years may not be involved in football at supposedly a higher level. You know, you swim together, you get win together. If you go down, you go down together. But that certainly was maybe the core values that I took from Fanad, and thankfully, rightly or wrongly, I'd continue them with anything that I have touched since that, Arthur.
Right. So just now, maybe to wrap up, as you know, Fanad are celebrating a big anniversary, and this is what this is all about. So if I asked you a message for Fanad United, what would that be for Fanad into the future?
Well, obviously, I don't think from seeing, Arthur has he done 11 years? Am I right? I'm gone 11 years. I think he's done 11 years through thick and thin. And I just think the resilience, and not just because he's your son, but the leadership that's there, with the group. And he's a completely new group. Some of them I know, some of them I don't. But certainly those core values, will never change there, Arthur. And, I just hope the new generation, and I'm sure they will bring that togetherness, loyalty, and looking after each other, both on and off the pitch, which was always to me what Fanad was about. And I've no doubt that's what they're about. And please God, in the future, for the next 50 years, that they'll have those core values that I witnessed while I was there.
When did your Fanad United career start, Arthur?
2000, 99, 2000 was it. Went down and played under Eamon McConaughey for a couple of seasons. Was my first involvement. Left White-Strand and went down.
And how did you find Fanad United as a club?
Top club at that time. For me it was just a culture shock. Going from, I've been around a few other clubs, and to go back down, Eamon McConaughey and Colin McGonigal were managers, both of them at that time. And it was just the training and everything, preparation, the whole lot was different level that I was used to, It was senior football.
Good standard of football.
Good standard of training, good standard of football, good quality of players in this group,
So how long did it take you to get into the first team?
Well, I sat for 7 or 8 games and I never got a sniff. And I remember Desi McLaughlin got injured, or he got a clot in his leg or something, and he missed a game and I got in, and I played pretty much for the rest of the season. It was actually the first year we went on. We won the league that year. We got to the semi-final Intermediate Cup. We won, I think, the Knockalla Cup with a very successful season that year. So it was a good start, Eamon had a lot of young players that year. There was, at that time, I think I was maybe 20, 21. Paul Lynch was playing, Marty McAtee was playing, Paul Field was on there, Kieran Gorman. They were all 16, 17. You had Fergus Callan, then you had the experience, you had Davy Deary, Sean Barrett, Dixie was down with us that year, Shane Swinney and Burger, all in, John Doherty, all in around the early 20 mark, Dara Patton. We had a lot of good players, but they were very young, and to be fair, we probably exceeded expectations that year, because it was a time, it was maybe just after the likes of Kenny Harkin and Mark McGinley and them had stepped away, and they weren't sure how we were going to pan out, but it went well. And I'd done 3 years that time. We won a league and a few cups, and I ended up going back to Cranford for a season. I was away working for the year, around about 2003 was it, and I came back the following year. Ollie took over 2004, and I came back along with the two Nashes, Philip Buchanan. Kosha came back in that time. Kosha was in America. He came back in. We'd a very good 10 years under Ollie. We won 3 or 4 league titles, and maybe a dozen cups around that time. We got to another semi-final Intermediate. That's the one we threw away. I think that's one regret. We should have done better in that one. But look, that's buts and maybes. So I finished up in 2011. Then I went back to Cranford for a couple of seasons. Ollie done another year there, and I think, when I went back, it was a full rebuild job, It was just a lot of players, myself included, we all sort of kind of came to a natural end at the one time, and there's a lot of young fellas coming through. It was hard work. We had a couple of seasons we were thereabouts. There wasn't just competing, but we didn't really have enough to get to the top of the Ulster Senior League. The Ulster Senior League was really hard at that time too. You know, I'd always say for the likes of Barry McAteer and Kosha and a few of them older boys that came back in, you know, Kieran Gorman that had been with us, they came back in and pulled us out through those years, David Walsh, and they were instrumental in keeping the thing afloat, you know. We had the likes of Mark McElhinney and Oisin Langan came across, Declan McGarvey, you know, those boys were there in the bad times. We had a lot of the younger boys that we have now. We had you know, Paddy McGinley and Keelan McElwain, James Galler, Darren McElwain, Paddy Carr, Eddie Riley. They were all in those years as well, but they were just all very young. And it took a few years, you know, but they stuck with it, you know. We did have lean times, but it paid dividends, and we ended up, you know, we won a few league titles there, and like we're back at the minute. We're involved in a very strong Premier Division, and you know, we're competing. We're thereabouts in all games, you know, and you know, you can't ask any more. The boys, they work hard, they train hard, and you know, they have the same values that we had ourselves. When I would have played under even McConaughey and Ollie, you know, what they demanded is the same as what we demand. You know, nothing changes.
Yeah. So what is the makeup of the present day backroom team?
Well, there's probably half a dozen of us, you know, between the first team and the development squad. So there's myself and two Nashes, Paul and Darren, and you've got Paul Lynch, Dougie McGlowan and Dennis Doherty there. So probably myself and Paul and Darren are more geared towards the first team, and Paul Lynch and Dougie and Dennis look after the development squad. But like, you couldn't emphasise enough, you know, the contribution that's been made by, you know, the boys that are there taking training every night, and you know, the effort that's put in, and Paul Nash in particular, even for his media stuff, like he's absolutely brilliant, you know, and you know, knowledge of the game, all the boys respect him. And you've Darren in there, no goalkeeping coach. Both boys have played at a very high level, you know, and we're very lucky to have them. And similar to that, you know, Paul Lynch and Dougie, you know, boys, great heart, a lot of experience in the game, and the club's very lucky to have them at the minute, you know. Because everyone's back in the one division, you know, obviously Inishowen's still separate with, you know, Cockall and Buncrana, but the standard's very good. You know, there's a lot of good quality players in the league. There's a lot of players now that come back from senior football, they end up in the Premier Division of the Donegal League. The standard's good, and for us to be able to compete, and we still have a relatively young side. The average age of our team's probably 23, 24 on any given day. So there's lots more to come from this group, you know. This year we're into the last 32 of the Junior Cup, which is our first time out of the county in about 15 years, you know, and that was something that we did want to get back to. We have a home draw now to Harden FC from Dublin, so we'll do a bit of homework on them for the new year, but overall, you know, things are going quite well, so long may it last.